That'll teach me. It's been a little while since we've done an episode. So welcome back, everyone. I'm Howard Holton. Welcome to another episode of Discovering Disruptions in Tech. You may have noticed we took a little bit of time off, but that was because we were really trying to find the right guest and the right content. We want to have a lot of impact. We want to bring you as much insight as we can. And I am pleased to share that I think we found the right guest here. So this week we have Ronen Korman, the CEO of Datorios. Hey, Ronen, how's it going?
Going well. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. And for anyone that's wondering whether you and I are propeller heads, we're both sitting in our respective labs, which I find to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Apache Fink. So what is Fink and why is Fink kind of valuable to organizations today?
Yeah, so I think that, Flink became the de facto way or de facto project for processing data in real time. The market was standing for a long time on batch processing. I think that something started to change in the couple of years. We were starting Datorios. We heard we don't need streaming data. We don't do streaming data. Now the sound is different today, and I think that Apache Flink positioned itself to be the engine that streaming data is being processed, both for transactions and giving user experience, like for example Uber gives when you see that car coming to collect you, but also around real-time AI applications where teaching the model is not relevant of having ChatGPT having data teached 2 months ago. The things need to be updated and refreshed rapidly. So I think that Flink is positioning itself to be on that spot of processing data in real time. And we chose it after a long journey of even trying to develop our own processing engine, but just realized that it is the right project to put our technology on. That's basically it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the pattern with Apache projects, right? Apache projects tend to be very high quality, very pointed, very kind of specific to purpose, but also incomplete for enterprise scale, right? And I don't mean they don't work at enterprise scale. I literally mean as you start to scale them, what you determine is, oh crap, there's this huge piece missing.
Yeah, right? You're just touching the point.
Right.
Yeah, I think that Apache projects focus on functionality and on specific performance, on being elite on something, but yeah, they do miss touching the all rough edges around being an enterprise grade solution. In this case, observability is a huge gap within Flink, and that's what we try to fill that gap. We talked about a minute ago about Datorios' logo, about having that squirrel in X-ray. Flink is actually a black box. It's amazing black box. It gives high performance. It has huge capabilities and flexibility, but it's very, very hard to understand what is going on within that black box. And actually, the way to understand Flink is to see the edges, the source and the sink. And it's very, very difficult to understand what is going on within that black box. And when you go back from debugging, compliance, and problem fixing, that is a huge gap within Flink. So when everything works, it's an amazing thing. But when things start to go south, it's becoming very difficult. And there are very famous use cases that show that. And observability is one thing of putting the light into that black box and making it more transparent.
For sure. I mean, the reality is, if I don't understand it, I can't operationalize it.
Yeah, and I think that you can't even trust it.
Correct.
The ability to adapt a major tool that stands within your underlying infrastructure is the ability to say, okay, when something goes wrong, when I've been asked a good compliance question, I can give an answer. And I think that I can see companies not taking the risk of using Flink because it's not transparent enough.
Well, I can also see companies getting into trouble using Flink if they don't have a way to observe it, right? If you look at the new governance standards that are being proposed around, especially around AI, most of them have requirements to manage bias and explain what the AI is doing. Well, if you have a black box at any point in your AI chain, you've now lost the ability to explain what's happening, right? Yep. That opens a tremendous amount of risk. Right? In addition to, if it's a black box, I can't troubleshoot it. I can't performance measure it. I can't tune it. I just have to accept that I've done the right thing and this is the output that I get, right? So scalability becomes an issue. Manageability at that scale becomes an issue, right? All the things an enterprise looks for, not necessarily a developer, but an enterprise looks for to operationalize something is missing. And that's that's okay, because if the Apache team, the Flink management team, decided that those were places they wanted to focus, they'd have to give up on other things that they were building. And honestly, if they just focus on performance and quality and let the ecosystem build around them, that works. And that tends to be how Apache, operates anyhow, right? It's more about the ecosystem and let them be the engine.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think you touched the two key points. I think it's operational availability and quality. And I think that if you take your whole data team and focus that effort on maintaining that, because there are existing money delivering pipelines, then you don't do other things. The team cannot grow because you have more and more data. And I think that it's about shifting the talent into growth and not to maintenance. And I think that good observability solution can do that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, all of these things need to be maintained. I don't want anyone to take what I'm about to say incorrectly. We have to pay for maintenance, and we're generally criminally opposed to paying for maintenance as organizations. That being said, we're far better off putting 80% of our dollars into providing value and 20% of our dollars into maintenance. And the better these tools are at being able to be maintained, the better these tools are at adding visibility where problems exist, so that your maintenance time is highly focused and anywhere that it can be predictable rather than reactive, is money generally very well spent.
Yeah, and I think another thing is that the market is in shortage of talent of using Flink. So in that shortage, it's where do you put your next Flink expert? Is it on maintenance, or you're building your next pipeline that can give you revenue? And I think that we need a good balance between what tools we are using, spending money using tools, and how do we allocate the talent in the organization to do the right thing for the company. The major thing of a company is to give revenue. Maintenance is a thing you have to do.
Sure. It's a side effect, but
if you don't do it well.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
It's medicating rather than fixing the problem. Mm-hmm. Right? We want to fix the problem. We want to provide value. And if we look back over kind of the 10 or 15 years that dedicated data science teams have existed inside organizations, the big issue orgs have really had is scaling those organizations to profitability, right? Building a data science practice that gives you the ability to scale. And that's where kind of these modern tools and observability really starts to shine, because without observability, you fall into this trap of one data scientist is kind of stuck managing, or one data engineer is kind of stuck managing one data project, because it's overwhelming to constantly chase your tail of black box to black box to black box. Right? Yeah. With observability, you start to create these platforms of consistency. You start to create these platforms of visibility, and you start to create these platforms of operations that allow you to build a practice that has the ability to scale in whatever direction the business needs to scale.
Yeah, totally right.
Right, and then it's not a black box, and it's also not a black box with people. Yep. Right. Just to your point, we have a severe talent shortage within this space, And if you're a leader and you're not thinking about your data people, your data scientists, your data engineers as a bit of mercenaries, you have a problem, because you have a ticking time bomb of knowledge that's going to walk out of your business. And so you really do need to put these platforms in place so that less and less and less of that knowledge can just walk out and leave you with, now you have 5 unsupported data projects because somebody critical left.
Yeah, and I think as a leaders, and I think most of us, touch a lot of technology. We have our gray hair here and there. I think as a leader, it's the responsible thing to do. Responsible thing for your people, for your talent, for your business, for your engineering. Not having the right tools, not only observability, but I think observability can be other security, cybersecurity. I think not having those things in place is not the responsible way to treat your business, because 90% of the time maybe everything's okay, but you as a leader, you're basically being measured on those 10% that something happens, and it goes back to the ability to detect that something happened, and go again. It goes back to cybersecurity. Detection is the most important thing, and then response. So detect the problem, and then isolate the problem and fix it as soon as possible. It goes back to your availability, reputation, quality. I call it operational qualities. The slogan of making a technological operation as a good enough quality to meet the balance between the expenses you put on it and the value it gives you.
Yeah, for sure, right? It's operational professionalism.
Yeah.
Right. That includes quality, that includes speed, that includes performance, that includes scalability. All of those things are required, and it is incumbent upon us to have operational professionalism in the things that we do as leaders. Right.
Yeah, totally.
So let's talk a little bit. What is, like we've said, observability half a dozen times now, or a dozen times, or whatever. When we talk about observability, when we're looking at streaming data, what does that mean? What do we get out of it? What are we looking to get out of it? And kind of like, if we're going from a level 0, we have no observability. We can't immediately go to like level 5. We'll overwhelm our people. So what does kind of the path look like to kind of go down this? What do you need to look for in early observability? And then how does that evolve over time to get you to where you're fully mature within the space?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing you need to understand is the difference between monitoring and observability. But because everybody's using the term observability today, but not everybody is doing observability. And I think that a lot of cases, people say, I have observability, I have a monitoring solution, I'm using Datadog or something. It's not the same. I think that monitoring is usually, is looking to things that already happened to you. So something broke, you understood it, you fixed it, the different parameters that will show you that this thing is happening again. You are monitoring them, and you have a monitoring solution. The nice thing about it that usually you are monitoring things that won't happen again because you fixed them. So the organization build a huge monitoring. I'm not against monitoring, but monitoring is not observability. I think that's the first layer of understanding, that monitoring is not observability. I think that the difference between observability and monitoring is not only the ability to see that something is happening, but understanding why it is happening. So the ability to understand things that didn't happen to you or are more complex, and having enough data, historical data, and tools to build an investigation process in order to understand, okay, I have something that happened to me, and to find the root causes for that solution. And I think it starts with, companies become very complex. So if I'm talking about Flink, the persona that develops the data pipeline for Flink is not responsible to maintain that data pipeline when it's operational. So there is a Flink operator that is responsible to operate that process, and he usually gets the call that something goes wrong. And the first thing that he needs is the ability to route the problem to the right persona in the company. So I think observability is understanding it's not dashboards that give you value, but it's the first thing that, okay, something is happening. Let's see what happened. Let's find the right persona that needs to deal with that problem, and with that blame game companies that everybody is good. I'm not responsible for that. Having a common ground of data to solve that problem, because sometimes problems are in the connection, the integration between two teams. So do we have the same data, the same traces to understand what's the problem between us? So it goes back to collaboration. And then, of course, having the investigation tools that let you, debug the specific problem and to fix it. So it's layers of understanding and building a process that are connected to tools in order to build the thing that we call observability. So it's understanding that it's not monitoring, having the ability to see that happen, having a common ground of information, and having the right tools to detect, isolate, and solve the problem. So I think that that's the process of understanding that companies need to pass in order to understand that they need observability.
Okay. Do you have an example of where, like, a customer had monitoring, still had a problem, and observability was able to solve the problem where monitoring was not? I mean, monitoring doesn't solve any problems, but you know what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah, I think that the most common use cases are use cases when, if I'm taking data in general, but Flink specifically, it's divided to three domains: the data, the code, and the infrastructure. And I think that in every place that there's a problem in one of those domains, monitoring can solve the problem. If your data is bad, your data, the data you're getting from some supplier is broken, then you can detect that. You see, that's not the data that I used to get. I fix that, or asking to fix that. If your code, as an exception, okay, that I see that the breaking point, and I will fix that code. And if I'm short of resources, I will see that in my monitoring solution, I will put more resources into my infrastructure. I think that the cases that we see are when more than one parameter or factor is involved. And we see a lot of use cases of the connection between state with Flink and performance, because I think that one of the most amazing thing about Flink is the ability to use state as part of the data processing. So enriching data by that, building windows, putting context of time and essence into the data processing. But this state, if it's not managed correctly, can grow, for example, to huge amount of data. And this is connected, for example, to checkpointing, which is another feature of Flink, which checkpoints the state of the state from time to time in order to give you reliability. When something breaks, you can go back to the last point that your data was processed. But if the state is too big and checkpoint is too long, or taking too much resources, then things start to break, not because your data was wrong, your code is bad, or infrastructure is not enough, because there is a connection, there's a coupling between two different things.
For sure.
And if you don't give the ability to, the story about the egg and the chicken, which one became first? So which is the cause? The cause is the state, or the cause is that your checkpointing method was not right, or maybe you truly don't have enough capacity in your cluster. And I think that this combination of things that would involve two parameters are the most common use cases when observability gives its benefits.
For sure. It's funny, as you're talking through that, what it sounds to me like is the same stuff I did as an old SQL performance guy, right? SQL is operating correctly, the hardware is operating correctly, the data is clean. However, I'm not getting the expected result, but there's also no errors. Well, my auto grow was fine when the database was small. Now the table's huge, and so the auto grow takes 2.5 minutes to complete instead of 10 seconds to complete, or 2 seconds or 0 seconds, right? My all the data works great, and there's no problem until I start pushing this huge amount of data. And now, while it's all still working, right, the table is locked because I'm dumping a bunch of data in there, preventing other things from happening. I can solve it by simply creating batching. But in order to do that, the amount of investigation time necessary to find all of those things is not insignificant, right? And so effectively what observability is trying to do is shorten that investigation time and the things that don't trigger a simple red, yellow, or green light. But rather everything from a system standpoint is working. It's just not working the way you want it to work. And therefore, you're going to have to do some investigation. And so observability is more about, is performance how I want it to be, not is performance technically correct by definition of the application builder.
Yeah, it goes back again to monitor. Your monitoring will show everything is green.
Right.
But your infrastructure is sick. We see use cases of clusters that are being resetted over and over again.
Right.
Between resets, they are all green. But checkpoint starts, there are not enough CPU resources, they crash, they start from a checkpoint, everything looks okay, but your data is not being processed and you are building back pressure and you're interfering with the service you are giving. And again, that's exactly the difference between monitoring and observability. Okay, understand I have a problem. What's the problem? What's the root cause of that problem? And it can become very, very complex. There's a famous Pinterest use case of having a memory leak on their infrastructure. They began with thinking, okay, we don't have enough memory on our cluster. Let's push more memory to the cluster. It had been happening again. No matter how many memory they pushed into the cluster, at the end of the day, after a very difficult investigation process they did, amazing investigation process, the detector bag they had in the code that caused that memory leakage. It cannot be solved without the right tools and the right personals, and it won't be said with monitoring. And again, it won't be the responsible thing of saying, okay, that's the way it is. I have a memory leak. I will push memory from time to time. Yeah, that's not being professional.
100%, right? But it's also, again, the story of my people. I've spent 80%, 70% of my time on the infrastructure side, 20 to 30 on the development side, and really, I can only lead development teams. I'm now two left hands when it comes to development, but it does remind me of every interaction I've ever had with a developer, which was, hey, I think there's a problem in the code. No, there's no problem. Just give me more hardware.
Of course.
Right. And at some point, that's simply untenable as a solution. In the short term, it's probably smart. The amount of time to find a bug where the memory leak is occurring is significantly greater than adding memory to a server or provisioning more memory to a VM. But you do that 3 or 4 times, and all of a sudden, you should recognize you have a far bigger issue here, which I'm assuming is what they do.
Patching is good engineering, it's smart engineering, but it needs to buy you time, or the flexibility or the room to find the root cause. There's no technical weakness that won't hit you somewhere. In the time, it would hit you in the worst time. On your Black Friday event, it will hit you then.
For sure.
Then you won't have the time to do something. And again, it goes back to your business reputation, your revenue. So it's not about technology. I think that observability is really about managing your business. It has a technical influence. In the end of the day, you are dealing with technical ideas. But I think that having an observability solution to any solution, but with the complexity of things it emphasized, it's really a leadership thing of asking, do we have the right tools and the right observability level to maintain an ongoing business in a good enough thing?
Yeah, and to your point, it's about good enough. Right?
Yeah,
it's not about perfection. You're never going to get perfection. Right?
No, I think that being perfect is a waste of money. I think it's a good enough. It's a balance, a delicate balance between having a good enough solution for a very good business. I think that putting a lot of effort and building the 100% observability solution or any other thing is wasting money, because you become an observability company and not nail production company.
Correct. Right. You start trying to chase perfection instead of chasing value, instead of chasing whatever your business does, right? So focus on the business and deliver to what the business needs really are. So I think that's a great takeaway when kind of going through this process, because it is really easy in things like observability to try to chase perfection. How do I make sure all of the available failure points are closed? Well, don't. Just worry about, can I improve today from where I was yesterday, right? Can I make
I think
today?
And it goes back, not only I can suffer a breakpoint on a usual day, but how don't I suffer a breakpoint on Black Friday? Because Black Friday is not a usual day.
For sure.
Do I have the right knowledge to, simulate what is going to happen tomorrow? Do I have the right ability to understand what happened last year and what is expected to be this year? And I think that, my son is playing tennis. And he's telling me not every point is the goal point. You can lose point in tennis, but there are some points that you must win. And I think it goes back to the good enough. Not every day is a Black Friday day. So you need, as a leader, to understand this is my D-Day. That's the day that I need to be very good. In the other day, I can be okay. SLAs can be, different. And I think it goes back to leaders asking questions. Are we ready for Black Friday? Do we have, did we learn from last year? Do we have the right people in place for that day? Did we simulate the difference between last year and the next upcoming year? Do we have the right tools to mitigate the problem if there is a problem? So there can be a problem on Black Friday, but can we reduce that problem to minutes, not hours or days? Because after a day, nobody buys, and nobody will buy next year.
For sure, right? I mean, I think it's the question isn't do we know? The question is, how do we know? How do we know we're ready for Black Friday? Show me the evidence. That's what good leaders should be asking, right? If you just say, "Are we ready?" you're going to get a yes. I've never had somebody say, "No, we're absolutely not ready." Well, we did it last year, right? They said, "Yes, we're ready. We did it last year. We learned a little bit. Cool. How do we know we're ready for this year?" Right? What have we done today when the stakes are lower to make sure that we're in a better position for this Black Friday than any Black Friday before? Not just last Black Friday, any Black Friday before. That really should be the question, right? What tools do we have at our disposal to help us prepare for the unknown? Because what we know today still provides us valuable lessons about what's going to happen tomorrow. So what are we doing today when the stakes are lower to make sure that we don't suffer, right, an issue on Black Friday? I guarantee our infrastructure is not the same this year as it was last Black Friday. It's been a year. If it's the same, we're also doing our jobs wrong, right?
Yeah, your business is not the same today. You believe that your business, you have more customers of this Black Friday than the last year. So what changed? Am I ready for that growth?
Right.
And I think it's at the end of the day, it's about connection between engineering and leadership. Do the CTO or even the CEO asks about Black Friday readiness? I came from 30 years of service in the army. I had 2,000 personnel beyond me. And, in critical things, I've been asking the questions because, first of all, I'm responsible. But,
right.
It builds the tension around all the ranks of, being ready and asking the right questions because, your leader, your CEO will ask you questions when time comes. So I think it's a lot of technology. There are huge things to do about technology, but without the right culture and the right leadership, technology won't help.
Yeah, 100%, right? You can put all the technology in place you want, but if it's not pointing in the right direction and doing the right thing to help your business, it doesn't really matter. To your point, right? You can add all the memory you want to a server that has a memory leak, but if you don't solve the memory leak, there's not enough memory in the world. It's just you've effectively just given it a longer fuse. It's still going to explode.
Yeah, it's a fake feeling that everything is okay. You're lying to yourself.
Right. So I think this has been a fantastic kind of introduction and view on observability and some of the challenges with streaming data. Where should people go to learn more from Datorios?
Yeah, we are very active around, social and website and so on. I really like, meetings. I think that websites that put too much information are useful. People don't read anymore. So I think that the right thing to do is, to put catchers that, catch your attention, and then having face-to-face meeting. We have, three solution engineers that are just waiting to, meet your problem and, translate the problem to the product. I think it does two things. First, it is facing the customer. We talked about, how the customer is important, but it's feeding the company back to show where are gaps. Because I think that the worst thing to have is to internally think that you have the great product. I think a great product is a product that is, fed from the community, from customers. And I think that, that's the way that we teach about our program. Building a teaser, meeting you in a kind of a POC, building the gaps that you have fronting you as a customer, giving you the best solution we can, but also marking the gaps that we have and putting them into a roadmap that will improve the product, but improve it with facing the client and the market, and not just building a technological roadmap that is, maybe it's very nice and very attractive, but it's not connected to what the actual users need.
Sure.
So yeah, it goes back to blogs, it goes back to websites, it goes back to posts that we put, and we basically want to attract users to talk to us.
Great. What are the next conferences you're going to be at, if any?
We are going to be next week in Flink Forward in Berlin, actually. It's a huge Flink event. I think it's the major Flink event in the year. We're going to have a huge presence there. 2 lectures that we're giving, one about data lineage and the ability to use lineage as the tool to backtrace your problems into the root cause. And the other thing is more high level, is about the power for visualization as a tool to tackle complex problems in a more efficient way. So these are the 2 lectures that we are giving. 3 weeks ago, we were at the conference of Current that Confront gave. It was amazing. And I think that those conferences are very, very important. To meet, not only the variety of use cases, and of course as a lead generator, but it's meeting the market in a
For sure
more dense way.
Yeah, that's the same thing I go to conferences for, right? So I'll be at where am I going? I'm going to AWS. I'm going to Cloud Native. I'm going to, I don't know, there's probably 6 conferences before the end of the year.
Conferences are really good.
Conferences are fantastic. So excellent. So if you've stuck around, look for Ronen and Datorios at your nearest kind of dev data conference. They'll likely show up. If they're not, reach out to Ronen at datorios.com. What's your website?
Yeah, please. Datorios.com.
Datorios.com. And we were talking before we started. I like Datorios. Apparently, it's Latin for data, or the closest analog to data, which I didn't know. But it's Datorios. It makes your streaming data notorious.
Yeah, we got 1 mark.
Well, thanks for joining, Ronen. This has been a lot of fun, and I learned a ton. This has been another episode of Discovering Disruptions in Tech. Please like, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you on the next episode.